Howdy, and welcome back to the next episode of the pneumatics project where we're going to create an assembly. Starting with the valve where we left off last time, we had both components completed. However, we did not fully assemble them. I'm going to select the midpoint of this line right here and the midpoint of that interior line right there, and I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees. The motion needs to be a slider. Okay, I want to preview that motion. That's exactly what I hope to accomplish, so I will say okay to that. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to close it out. Also, on my piston, all I need to do is make sure that I have section analysis turned off because I did already assemble those two parts. I'm going to save that, and I am going to close it out. And then finally, the pressure vessel is going to need a rigid joint. We're going to use the outer ring at the top of that, and we're going to attach it to the bottom ring of the cap here, and that will be rigid instead of slider. We want that locked tight. Okay, so I'm going to save that, and okay, and I'm going to close it. Now let's open the data panel. That's these 9 boxes over here, and I want you to pay attention to how neatly I have organized all of my stuff inside of a folder called pneumatics. Now, at this point in time, I need to create a new Fusion file separate. It is important that you make a separate assembly file. So, in that same folder, I have a new blank assembly file. I can then begin to drag and drop these components into the new blank assembly file and say okay to that. So there's my pressure vessel or tank. Next, I'm going to bring in my valve. I'd like to move that over just a little bit so I can see. And I'm going to say okay to that. And I want to zoom in, and I want to start this assembly with a joint. And I'm going to base it off of this ring right here being attached to that ring right there. And when I say okay, I now have a valve assembled to the top of my pressure vessel. Next, I'm going to drag in the piston, and that'll be my last component. And again, I need to be able to rotate this so I can see. I'm going to go with -90. And this joint is going to be based off of the inside circle right here. Let's see. Yes, that one right there. And I want to attach it to this one right here. And I also would have to flip it and rotate 180 degrees. Or that's actually turning out to be 90 degrees. So I'm going to type exactly 90. Okay. So I will no longer need my data panel, and And I am ready to save my assembly. Finally, I can go into one of these joints and say that I want to animate joint relationships for that one. Okay, so that's still working correctly. And I could say that I want to animate joint relationships for that one. It looks like that has too much variation in the up and down, so I can escape out of that, leave this entire object right where it's at, and go back to my data panel. I can reduce the travel on this valve right now by right clicking and edit joint. For my motion, I can have minimum and maximum, and I can bring them to about, let's say, 10 millimeters each. And then preview those limits. Maximum should be probably -10. So preview those limits and reset and 10. That is what we're looking for right there. So we have -10, +10, and -10 to hit the limits exactly where we want it. So we should be able to save this, say OK to the default. Once we close this out, we're going to get a little notification up here that one of the child components has a new version available. If we click that, it's going to update. So now, if I animate this joint relationship, I'm going to see everything that I expected. That is all for today. Please make sure you do not attempt to assemble inside of your child components. You need to make an entirely different assembly file, new blank assembly file, and save your work.